Skuda to you. Let's say you were just starting out and getting to know metal, and you were wondering what album should I get. Well, first thing to remember is you don't need to get any albums if you don't want to. It's okay to just listen to one or two songs here and there. That's perfectly fine. There are kind of streaming things and stuff like that. But yeah, there are quite a few bands. Some of those are classic bands, but they usually have a lengthy discography. So what should you get to get the essence of the band? Kind of that taste. Also, I would say that many of these albums probably are gonna have a pretty decent resale value. This is like the classic stuff, and stuff that I still to this day enjoy listening to. So, what started metal in the first place? Black Sabbath. Many would say the first two albums. I think Paranoid would be a very nice place to start for many people. But personally, I'm kind of tired of hearing Iron Man and Paranoid. The album is pretty good though, so you might want to start there. But I might recommend Master of Reality. It's got classic songs like Children of the Grave, Into the Void, Sweet Leaf, and so on. But it's also a very well structured, a pretty short album as well. So I think this would be kind of a good taste for Black Sabbath, considering the Ozzy era. What you probably want to get in time is Paranoid, Master of Reality, Volume 4, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and Sabotage. Those 5 albums are really cool. You really can't go wrong with any of them. If you like this graveyard, slow, heavy, plodding, doomy stuff with Ozzy's vocals. However, Black Sabbath also had another brilliant singer, or legendary singer, I should say, Dio. And they had 2 really amazing albums in the early 80s. So Heaven and Hell is the one that's always recommended. I somewhat prefer Mob Rules. I think it sounds a bit more modern, a bit heavier, and the songwriting is really good on this one. Heaven and Hell has all the classic songs, so you're probably going to get that one as well. But don't forget Mob Rules. It's a really cool album. So, now you check out those 7 Sabbath albums. What next? In the late 70s, there was this album called Judas Priest, and it's actually my favorite band of all time, as I've mentioned. If you just want to get everything in a neat package and the best possible versions, get Unleashed in the East. It's a live album. Actually, some of the vocals were recorded in studio though. But, it's amazing. Studio or not. If possible, try to get this 13-track version, but you really can't go wrong with the 9-track version either. Both of those albums are amazing, really, really cool stuff. This one is my favorite album to this day. If it has to be a studio album for you first, get Painkiller. It's a really cool album. Heavy, kind of modern, from 1990. It's a killer album. There are really no bad songs in the lot. It's very fast and very face-melting, so get ready for something almost borderline extreme metal, even though usually Priest is more like a traditional heavy metal band. Then, this isn't really metal. So if you just want to keep it perfectly metal, forget this. But if there was one band outside of the metal genre that I would definitely recommend you checking out, it's Rush. Check out 2112, even just the A-side. This 20-minute long track. Check it out and see if you like it. If you're in the more proggier stuff, you're gonna like this one, like Dream Theater and that sort of thing. The roots are pretty much here. If you really like this one, you're gonna enjoy Farewell to Kings and a track called Xanadu. And Hemispheres is a cool one. Moving Pictures is a great one. You really cannot go wrong with the early Rush. except maybe stay away from their first album and Caress of Steel. Even though Caress of Steel is kind of heavy, but it's kind of weird as well. So maybe it shouldn't be the first album to check into. This is an excellent place to start. Iron Maiden, you gotta have some Maiden, right? Well, probably you've already heard Maiden anyway. I would probably start with Live After Death, because once again it's amazing album, and it's got all the best songs of the classic Iron Maiden era. If it has to be a studio album, probably Number of the Beast would be a good place to start, even though the opening track isn't the greatest, but it's got the energy and the excitement, and the rest of the album pretty much, except maybe Gangland, that's kind of shitty, holds up really well. Maybe Peace of Mind would be a good place to start, maybe Power Slave. Yeah, it's all good. So one of those three, you're probably gonna end up having those. Also Killers, even though it has a different singer. If you like it a bit harder and a bit more thrash metal like, check out Killers. Somewhere in Time, I think is severely underrated. It's got that American power metal, speed metal kind of influence there, and some synthesizers. But it actually fits the space-like mood of the album great. Early 80s, Ozzy's solo career. Many would say Blizzard of Oz. It's a great album. I somewhat prefer Diary of a Madman. Get them both and check out which one you like better. The same as Ozzy. With Dio, I would get the first two solo albums. The first one is called Holy Diver. Once again, that's the one people always recommend. It's got all the biggest hits, Rainbow in the Dark and all that stuff. But the last in line for me is a bit more metal, so I prefer this one. You can't really go wrong with either of those two. It's a question of taste. And once again, if you're already familiar with Black Sabbath, then it's really easy to get into Ozzy or Dio because you know the singer already. And these are all like stone cold classics. If this traditional metal isn't enough for you and you want things a bit more extreme, I would definitely check out Merciful Fate's Melissa. And Don't Break the Oath is also pretty good. And there's an EP which is sometimes called Nuns Have No Fun, which is cool. Definitely check it out. It has a couple of really killer songs. But really, Melissa, to this day, is my favorite Merciful Fate album, so check it out. Except many would say Restless and Wild, and it's not a bad place to go. But for me, Breaker, even though the production is, well, it's really clear and crisp compared to Restless and Wild, which is really dark and muddy. It has a killer song in Fast as a shark. But all in all, as a complete album, I would say Breaker is still my favorite. It always has been. But probably get those both. They're really good, both of them. And then there's the more commercial stuff on Balls to the Wall and Metal Heart. If you prefer something a bit faster and heavier, I was going to recommend you Metallica's first album, Kill 'Em All. It's really cool. Arguably, though, Master of Puppets is even better, and it's got many of the classic songs like Battery and Master of Puppets. And this is really pretty much the perfect thrash album from a band that I don't consider to be perfect. But this album is pretty damn close to a perfect thrash metal album. You can't really go wrong with Kill 'Em All, or Ride the Lightning, or Master of Puppets. All those three are absolute classics. You're probably gonna enjoy Justice for All and Black Album somewhat as well. But I would start with those first three ones. And they are, to this day, well, actually, I recently got Justice for All and Death Magnetic, so I do have some other Metallica albums nowadays as well. Megadeth. If you like your thrash metal as a bit more melodic and technical and speed metal like, this is where modern metal was pretty much born. Rust in Peace, absolutely amazing album. You can't go wrong with either of the Peace albums. Peace Cells is also a killer album. I really like the first one, Killing Is My Business. So probably those three you should get, but start with Rust in Peace. It's arguably the greatest metal album ever made for so many people. It's kind of perfect right there at the beginning of modern metal, where it still has the roots in the classic heavy metal stuff, but it keeps reinventing the thing and being so fast and furious and amazing. You don't, even if you hate Dave Mustaine's singing or growling or snarling, whatever you want to call it, I mean, that's one killer album. It's so good. It's not even funny. It's gonna hit you in the head and probably murder you or something like that. Slayer. I think I would urge you to get Raining Blood, and you'll do fine even with just this one Slayer album. I really love Slayer, and I don't want to put them down, but if you have your favorite Slayer album, you're pretty much set, because it's that same stuff on every single album. If you love this one, you're gonna like really heavily all of their albums, I would venture to say. Divine Intervention is one that's kind of forgotten. Hell Awaits kind of reminds more Merciful Fate. It's kind of like a cross between Merciful Fate and Slayer. I think this is a really good place to start, and probably still my favorite Slayer album to this day. Also very short, very concise, really intense. I'm not a huge Pantera fan myself, but yeah, in the 90s there weren't that many bands, metal bands, that you could be happy about, and Pantera surely was one of them. You could go with Cowboys from Hell, or you could go with Vulgar Display of Power. I chose this one. It's got quite a few big hit songs like Fucking Hostile and Walk and This Love, for instance. It's a really cool album. I really like the opening track, Mouth for War. And it's got the speed and energy. Cowboys from Hell also, you're gonna get that one, and maybe even Far Beyond Driven. I actually like Great Southern Trendkill better than Far Beyond Driven, but that's a personal matter. So probably those two or three Pantera albums you're gonna like. If you want to hear some death metal, I would recommend you Morbid Angel. Most people would say their first one, Altars of Madness or Covenant, but those are kind of like one-dimensional to me. I think Blessed Are the Sick has all kind of songs. It has fast songs, it got short songs, it got really weird interludes and all that crazy stuff. It's not quite my favorite Morbid Angel album. I actually like Formula's Fatal to the Flesh the best. So I would probably go with this one and Formula's. And there's some kick-ass death metal for you. But it's kind of versatile, so there are these really slow and doomy songs there. There are some really fast, face-ripping songs. You got all kind of goodness there. You really can't go wrong with Morbid Angel in the 90s. And late 80s in general, but I would say Blessed Are the Sick and Formulas, start with those. Another of those 90s classic bands, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Death, it's still such a cool band. I personally like the 90s proggy stuff a bit better. Symbolic, I think, absolutely is their best album. If you like this one, you're probably gonna enjoy Human and what's that called? ITP, that Individual Thought Patterns. Yeah, I think all those three are kind of in the same vein. Old school death metal fans will recommend you Leprosy. So if you want to check out Leprosy and Symbolic, you can check out which style you prefer, or if you like both of them and want to invest in the whole discography. I mean, Death has like 7 or 8 albums, I think, so it's not too bad even if you end up buying all of them. And then I will throw in one extra, Necrophagist. I personally like Epitaph a bit better than the first one. This is the second and actually the last album of Necrophagist. Really, really technical shit. So if you want to get up to date with modern prog death, this is a good album to check out. It's very short, it's very dense, really full of guitar noodling. For many it might be quite a lot to digest, but it's pretty much the first band that was up there to modern standards, considering this sort of really technical playing. If you like Necrophagist, you're gonna like Obscura, and some of the members are even the same as on this one. And then Gorod is actually my favorite band of that genre. The Faceless is another killer band. And these bands don't have too many albums out, so you can even like check out their whole discography, and it's like one afternoon per band if you listen to it, all of that. It's kind of technical and dense, so it might getting used to a bit more than some of the other stuff. But yeah, that's my personal recommendations. Of course, there are other styles of music like grunge. If you're into that sort of thing, or black metal or whatever, there are so many different genres that I don't really specialize in that much. But all in all, I would say if you want something easily digestible, I think Black Sabbath, Priest, and Maiden, probably that kind of stuff that you can kind of almost like play with your guitar, gradually start playing those riffs. It's nothing too difficult, like playing wise. It's not too technical. Then when we get to stuff like Rush, even, because they kind of well, some of their stuff isn't too complicated, but the bass and the drum things they do are just otherworldly, absolutely insane. But I would say there's definitely like a jump up, like a step up when you start listening to thrash metal, and then maybe with Megadeth, arguably it's even another step up from stuff like Metallica and Slayer, which is heavy and fast, but still kind of not that complicated to play. Whereas with Megadeth, we really start to hear the technical skill and the kind of the modern point of view. I guess Death goes to the same family. Pantera's Dimebag is an amazing guitar player as well, but quite a different style compared to many of the other bands I recommended here. And then with Necrophagist, that's like the step number 4, I guess we're talking about. So it's like another step up from all that Megadeth and Death thing, and even more dense, even more complicated. So definitely, if you're into metal and want 20 or so albums, this is a pretty darn good list, I think. And these are all bands that I would definitely get even more albums than just this one. But if you notice that you don't like Melissa at all, maybe Merciful Fate isn't your bag. So why waste money and resources on that? If you want something to start, yeah, this is a pretty good starter package in my opinion. So, until the next time, see you around.